Welcome to another episode of Exit Philosophy. He's Mal, I'm Griff. And before we get into it on this Remembrance Day, just like to thank you all for listening. Thanks for subscribing to Exit Philosophy. And if you enjoy us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, don't forget to like, share with your friends, and leave us a review. We'd appreciate it. Mal, Remembrance Day, I know it means different things to different people, but I have an uncle, Pat. And if you know my family, there's like probably 15 Patricks among the children and grandchildren, all in memory of my uncle Patrick, who died at the end of World War II, coming back from the front lines. The war was almost over, and his tank hit a mine on the road home, and he died at 19 years old. So, what memory? Again, before we get into it, just thank you all for your service. If you've been serving the Canadian military, and we appreciate everything you do. Do you have any specific memories, Mal?
Yeah, I think we've all been impacted one way or another, or obviously, everything that we know and love here is, been fought for, and we need to recognize those that, were put in unfortunate circumstances. I'm named after my grandmother's brother passed in the war as well. His name was Hamilton, and that's my middle name. And I've always had this kind of affinity, just, you feel a special connection to that. And I think it's nice to reflect on where we've been as a nation and not take it for granted. I just, it's an important day. And I think taking the time, and even, as we get further and further away from the world wars, that our kids, our grandkids understand, a little bit of the history. I think that's important, because I think that gets lost a little bit. I just think it's an important day. So.
Well said. Let's get into the substance of this week's Exit Philosophy, and we'll start with the media availability for President Mark Shapiro and GM Ross Atkins. And they don't go on stage together. It's not that they don't like each other, but Mark goes first, and Ross follows up, probably so that they know where to agree on certain things. And one guy doesn't say the wrong thing on stage, and then the other guy has to go against that stance. But it works out well for them. I mean, Shapiro started, this was last Thursday. Shapiro started and gave an impassioned 8 minutes and 14 seconds about life in Toronto, finding out what the country really thinks of his team, and just being one of the common people, walking the dog and hearing encouragement. I thought it was nice. What do you think about it?
Who hasn't every day walked their dog on the bridle path? I mean, it's just every man's every man. You know what I mean? But well played, Mark. Well played. I mean, he knows how to seize the day, so to speak, with the speech. So give him credit.
I mean, I just want to, before we get into more of this, I just want to talk about the impact and the role of the stadium renovations, and how really that has, well, first of all, it created a terrific venue, backdrop for television, for Fox, for North America, for Japan, and the possibility of future players coming over. We'll get into that. But what, to me, the significance and the impact of the new stadium and the renovations is that it has forced this ownership to never settle for mediocrity on the field. And I think that's the upside for fans, is that you have all this inventory, you have all this possibility. You had 28,000 fans there for games that were just on the big screen that were being played in Los Angeles. And those 28,000 people are buying merch. They're buying beer, they're buying food. And that's all going not to Jays care. That's going to the Blue Jays. And I think that's important. And fans should be encouraged, whether they like the renovations or not, that this is a signal from ownership that they'll never settle for mediocrity. I mean, they may be mediocre at times, but they'll never settle for it.
Right. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But I'll say this: from being around the team, working for the team as long as I did, and seeing this transformation, I mean, full marks to both the ownership and obviously Mark for having the vision and being able to convince ownership to see that vision through. That has been the biggest transformation of like I said, you go back to the JP Ricciardi days when you couldn't get anything out of them, and they were one of the lowest payrolls in baseball and seemingly uncommitted through ownership to doing anything but. And to see how committed ownership is now and the leadership of Rogers to winning, and obviously there's shareholder value they see, which is as they should. I'll give them full credit for that. I mean, the transformation of the stadium has been a real boon to the organization, and you have to give Mark full credit for that. It's changed just the way fans view the park, and now you've got to win. Like you said, now you've got to win because you can't spend all that money and build this little, mecca of a ballpark rather than the concrete, monstrosity that it was, and then leave it at that and then be the Pittsburgh Pirates, right? So hat tip to ownership. They're a real player, and I think everybody expects them going forward to be the Yankees, to be the Dodgers, and there's no reason to think they won't. So you have to give credit where it's due in that respect.
To me, an overlooked part of the success of the postseason at the stadium is that, and I don't know what you think about it, Mal, but they have to give an all-star game, the next available one, to the Blue Jays and to Rogers Center, because, I mean, what was the last one, 1991? So it's 34 years ago, and they're committed through, I think, 26, 27, 28 maybe. But that's a long time when there's only 30 major league teams, and you wonder why Toronto has never had another all-star game. And you've been to a lot. You've seen the impact. I think that when they have an all-star game and the baseball world is focused on the stadium, on the city, that's going to be a great selling tool for the Blue Jays moving forward. So that's a side effect, is that they are going to get at some point the all-star game at the next available opportunity.
Well, and as we've said in the last couple of episodes about MLB's push to move baseball international, I mean, what a perfect, the All-Star games, nothing more than an infomercial at this point, which is great. That's what it is. And start to move it to international locations, and you got one in your league with a good story to tell, with a nice ballpark in a tremendous city. It makes a lot of sense, because I'm going to guess they're going to start to move some of these games to London, England, and other locations as a precursor to those possibilities of franchises internationally. So I think you're right. I think Toronto's got to be first up, and why not seize the moment of what's going on here? I think it makes a lot of sense for the entire league.
The the opening of Shapiro's remarks was focused on his own contract, which expired this year. John Schneider, whose option everybody knew was being picked up for 2026, but hadn't really been announced yet. So that was a little newsy. And then Ross, who for some reason had a 1 year longer than Shapiro on his contract. And so he said that that's being worked on. So there's no surprise to me in the fact that the announcement hasn't been made on Shapiro, but that it will be shortly.
Yeah, I think a lot of jobs got saved this year, right? I mean, I think Mark strategically gave Ross the extra year with the anticipation if things went poorly. It was probably, the end for everybody. And, Ross traditionally gets that little extra year as you're going away, severance package there. But fortunately for everybody, it looks like they're not going to need those little protections. So things went well this year. And I'm assuming Mark's deal has probably been done for a little while now. into the back half of the season. I'm sure it was agreed upon. So I suspect we'll see something, winter meetings-ish type thing for Mark.
Yeah, and we're sitting here recording on, as we've pointed out, on a Remembrance Day, but this evening on the MLB Network, there's the Manager of the Year announcement for the American League and the National League, and John Schneider, and we've talked about that with Dan Wilson and Stephen Vogt are the three candidates. To me, this should be Schneider's year, but you never know because there's two writers from every city. And
you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. But to me also, they might just use that if he does win to at some point in the next week announce Schneider extension. I mean, like it would not be out of line to add 3 years to that option year that they've picked up.
Yeah, that's kind of generally the term too, right? I think so. I'm suspecting that you're looking at a 3-year extension, and hey, well deserved. I mean, it's if you're nitpicking if you're complaining about John Schneider this year, that's for sure. So
the thing about going into, and we've seen it before. We saw it with J.P. Ricciardi and John Gibbons. We saw it with Charlie Montoya and this group. But if you get a 1-year addition to a current contract, that's a warning sign. You're about to be fired, because they like to hand out those golden parachutes and give a guy a little bit of a money break heading into some sort of a retirement or a firing, basically. We've seen that far. I joked with Gibby about that when he got the extension. I said, you're going to be fired next year. And he was.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody knows. That's right. So, yeah, we suspect it's going to be more than that. So, good for John.
Now, there was only one personnel move. Well, there's a couple in the dugout, and we'll get to the Shane Bieber one in a minute. But Don Mattingly leaving.
Yeah.
Don Mattingly leaving as a coach. I always felt like he was not an integral part of that dugout. Yeah. They respected his presence there, but when they brought in DeMarlo Hale and they changed his role 3 years in a row, Mattingly's, I didn't think he was like the happiest camper out there. They said, and Shapiro said that he's going to spend more time with his family, but he's open to taking another job somewhere. That doesn't sound like a real commitment to spending more time with the family. But do you think that, I don't think that's a huge loss, but what do you think in terms of in the dugout as an advisor to John Schneider, or even the role that he had with players? We saw Bo hug him at the end of the season in the dugout as they were watching the Dodgers celebrate. What do you think of the loss?
I'm with you. I kind of felt like Mattingly was redundant there, and he's Don Mattingly. He's a legend. He's been a manager, and he had so many different roles, like they just weren't working out. He was in charge of the offense, the bench coach, but DeMarlo was the bench coach. And I'm guessing, and I don't think there's anything crazy to report here. I just think probably he realized that that's not the right role for him, and there's more he's got to give to the game. And like he could have positioned himself for a manager's job while still being in the role. He just probably didn't really enjoy being in that role, and there was too many Chiefs in that kind of dugout, in my opinion. So I think it makes sense. He's probably just like, yeah, I'll take a step back. While most of the manager jobs are already taken anyways, maybe see what happens midseason. There's always a few vacancies partway through the year. So, I'm sure he's fine financially. So I'm guessing he just it's not a role he wanted to do any longer. And there's nothing more to it than that. And let's see what happens.
Yeah. The cameras are omnipresent in the modern television dugout. And I'd say 95% of the shots of John Schneider showed Pete Walker. And
DeMarlo.
It was hard to see where Don Mattingly was, and he's supposed to be a bench coach, an advisor to Schneider. But I think he did spend more time with the individual players, sort of in the back of the dugout, going up and down and being sort of a mental coach, an inspirational coach. And that's why Bo reacted the way he did at the end of his time. But there is, and when I saw Bo hugging Mattingly, it was touching. It was a good moment.
Yeah.
And lately I've been thinking, well, like there's one job left open, and it's Colorado. And there's not going to be a young manager take that job. So what if they get a marquee name like Don Mattingly and Bo goes with them? Bo would love hitting there. Dante Bichette was a huge star in Denver.
Yeah, people actually thought he was good.
Wow.
No, he's a good hitter. He's a good hitter.
Yeah. But it's just a random thought that I had. But there's nothing behind it, no significance. I just thought it was
It would be convenient, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So Don Mattingly, again, we'll stay with the Mattingly theme, since your son is named Mattingly.
Yes, he is.
Clearly, you have a propensity for this guy.
Yeah.
He's on the Veterans Hall of Fame list with that announcement coming at the winter meetings in December. He's with Carlos Delgado, Dale Murphy, Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Jeff Kent, Gary Sheffield, and Fernando Valenzuela. On that list, I assume you think Mattingly should get in. Who else do you think has a chance to get in?
Of course, I always have, a bit of a bias there, and he was clearly my favorite player. I just love the way he played the game and hit, and just, I do. However, that being said, if you assume Don Mattingly should be in, why is nobody talking about Carlos? Like that kind of just maybe, like, I don't know, like Carlos's numbers are off the charts. I mean, he came a little later than Donnie in some respects. You know what I mean? A little more offensive era, I suppose. But I mean, it's common. I feel like Carlos is just being dismissed in this conversation, don't you?
Yeah, and there's another guy on that list, that's not on the list, Al Oliver, whose numbers in the same era compare favorably to Don Mattingly.
And also a good first baseman.
By the time he got to Montreal, and he was there for a couple of years in 82, 83, but by the time Al Oliver got to Montreal, his arm was done. His arm was shot. So at first base, he just relied on the glove. If he had to throw, like a guy like Vlad Guerrero Jr. is great at the 3-6-1 or 3-6-3. Al Oliver's specialty by the time he got to Montreal was a 3-7-5 out at third.
Total decoy. Attaboy.
But I agree. I mean, a guy like Dale Murphy is getting a lot of support.
Yeah.
Dale Murphy is a 2-time MVP. He didn't get in the Hall of Fame from the writers' balloting, and I just have an anecdote about him. And I never voted for him because specifically in the early 80s, when women were trying to get in equal access in the baseball writers, and this is who votes for it, BBWAA members.
Right.
When women were trying to get in, the Braves came to Olympic Stadium, and I was trying to help. John McHale was not big on having women in the clubhouse, so MLB was advocating for it. So we made sure that they had access right after games. There was no separate room where a player would go to be interviewed by a woman reporter. And I went down after a game, and the guard wasn't letting women in the clubhouse. And I said, what's up with that? And he said, well, Dale Murphy came out and said not to let women in the clubhouse because it's a religious thing. And at that moment, I thought, and later on when he wasn't getting the vote, I thought, well, there's a lot of women reporters now that are voting members, and I can't see one of them voting for this guy because of that. and like his numbers are fine, great. But I also don't like the Braves, and I don't like the Dodgers, and I don't like the Red Sox. So maybe I have a little bit of a bias there, but I didn't think it was right what he had done. And it may have had an effect on his voting. So he may get in with this Veterans Committee who don't have that background on it.
Of men.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, if you want to put it that way, sure.
Griff, we were still struggling to allow women into our clubhouse in the 2000s. So, I mean, it's amazing how difficult the transition was for baseball, and I'm sure other sports were like that too. So, I'm guessing there was many a story like that. It was certainly. I was in shock at how, as an organization, how we had to force that issue to allow staff and females into our clubhouse. It was kind of shameful, to be honest with you, but I'm glad to see that I think that things are a lot different now.
Yeah, I mean, things are definitely a lot different, even without, like, used to be no modesty or shame in Major League clubhouses. Guys coming out of the shower, holding their towel over their shoulder, and just walking across the clubhouse. And it became especially so when women came into the clubhouse.
Right.
And you don't see that anymore. You don't see women come in the clubhouse, and guys are quite modest about what they do going from shower to locker. And most of them keep a towel on as they pull up their underwear and their pants. So, like, yeah, it was the wild, wild west back then. And it's become much more civilized, much more conscious of social more right now.
Now we don't even want to let men in the clubhouse anymore. We don't allow anybody in the clubhouse.
That's a great point. That's beautiful. I love that. The next,
which is a different issue.
Right. The next topic that came up with the availabilities, and we'll go through a lot of what was said, and we'll have our reaction to it, was Shane Bieber's surprising decision to take his player option. So the club had no role in this, $16 million, and he accepted it. He opted in, even though there was a $4 million buyout if he opted out. So he would have had $4 million plus whatever he could get on the free agent market.
Right.
You think there's a story behind this? What story are you looking at?
Well, so I've been thinking a lot about this, and then I've talked to some friends, and they're pointing out my cynical ways, and I'm like, fair enough. God forbid somebody chooses doesn't choose the almighty dollar. We're just not trained to think of it this way, and maybe he's decided this is a good spot for him. And so I sat back and I thought about it, and I said, no, I just can't buy it. So I'll be the guy, and maybe I'm the wrong guy you want to hear from on this, but I think it's nonsense. I think we all make these decisions, business decisions in our life, and we make what's best for us. And I think Shane Bieber just made a business decision. So why would somebody give away a $4 million buyout and theoretically over $20 million on a multi-year deal? Right? Why would you do that? I mean, I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry. I know it was a beautiful, great story in Toronto this year, but you're not the only team that treats their players well, or even there's teams that treat them way better than Toronto. There's a 10-year history in this organization that wasn't good prior to this magical lightning in a bottle season. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. So somebody has to play the realist. I think for some reason, Bieber thought he wasn't going to get the money that people thought he was going to get. Why would that happen? Maybe something's not right with the guy. You tell me he's going to go in, take $16 million for 1 year, and then go into a following season where there's going to be no baseball with no contract, like with a work stoppage potentially looming on the horizon. None of it makes sense. The only thing that makes sense to me is he doesn't think he's going to get the money. Perhaps something's not right with him. So I'm going to take the guaranteed 16 million, see if I can get myself sorted out, and then march my way back in. Ask Jeff Hoffman how it went in free agency. So maybe I'm the cynical asshole who's out here, you know what I mean, with people think, oh, maybe you're the axe to grind guy. No, I just think you're being a realist. I just don't see the kumbaya moment that we're all in love here, and you know, we all hold hands and sail off into the sunset because she loves me. I think he made a business decision for Shane Bieber, and I'm gonna guess we're gonna find out. That's the thing. We're probably gonna find out what the issue was. So that's my position. I don't, you probably don't see the same way I do, but I've thought about it a lot, and none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. Toronto's not that great.
Yeah, I had heard from a friend who suggested, basically, I didn't know what you were going to say here, but I had heard from a friend with a similar view that maybe he was afraid of passing physicals around the free agent world. And that, you know, he's coming off Tommy John. Maybe there's something deeper. Maybe, you know, like, look what happened with Max Scherzer. He missed most of the regular season with a thumb that was connected to the elbow, which was connected to the shoulder, which was connected to his ass, you know, like it was, everything came back to the thumb. So maybe there's something with Shane Bieber that it was better for him to take a guaranteed 16 million than take 4 and then go out and explore. How many physicals did Jeff Hoffman fail before the Blue Jays signed him? I think he failed
at least 2. Right? Yeah,
Baltimore,
2, Atlanta and Baltimore.
Yeah. So we didn't compare notes on this, but I've heard that as a theory, and I just like to believe that it's because everything was so good and his family loved this situation so much, and they're going to run it back and try it again. But then you look at the Dodgers and you go, why are the Dodgers signing more high-priced starting pitchers? Like, they've only got a 5-man rotation. Why are they signing? Because they're signing guys who are fragile, who have a history of injury. And the more guys you sign, if you don't give a rat's ass about the money that you're spending in total payroll, then you get a situation where enough of your guys get healthy by October that you run it back and you have a chance to win another World Series.
Yeah, and they don't mind burning guys out either. So, like, that's part of the design. It's part of it's the Tampa Bay model with money. They're Dodgers.
But before we move on to another topic, you brought it up, the clubhouse and the camaraderie and how great this is inside the Blue Jays clubhouse, and it makes it easier to come to the ballpark and play. I mean, that is not necessary. That's a different formula than used to be a winning formula. You look at this 1972, 73, 74 Oakland Athletics. They had more clubhouse fights, internal fights. They hated each other. And when Dick Williams was there, they hated him. So, and they won 3 straight World Series. So things have changed. It's a kinder, gentler world. And you have now where players hang around in the clubhouse. They get to a team hotel and they go to their rooms and they stay in touch, social media, and play video games, play MLB, play Madden, whatever they play. So it's a different world,
right?
Because the Blue Jays clubhouse has not invented closeness.
No,
I remember when I was with the Expos, and everything comes back to me to the Expos because I spent 22 years there. But in the early 90s, you know, you talk about closeness, and this is what closeness was in those days. We landed in Philadelphia, went to the Sheraton Society Hill at 2 a.m. after a night game somewhere, and we decide that we're going to go look for a Philly cheesesteak at 2:30 in the morning. And it's Larry Walker, Mark Gardner, Moises Alou, and Ken Hill. A black, a Latin, 2 white guys, and me.
Right.
And that, to me, at that time, that was closeness. That was what it was all about. Is there were no cliques, there was no groupings in the corners of the clubhouse, and now it's changed. And the feeling is that the Blue Jays have perfected closeness in the clubhouse, and I tend to disagree. It's just the current time, the current societies and norms.
Well, and I don't dispute that it was a good environment. You were winning baseball games, and you were winning baseball games with some unexpected sources, younger guys that are probably more, they've spent a lot more time together in the minor leagues. So I don't dispute it was a good environment to be in. But it's not some, you like you said, you didn't reinvent the wheel here. I mean, I'm sure the Dodgers were pretty close too. They feel pretty good about their clubhouse too, with all that money being spent, and it's what, that stuff is more for the fan base. It's a marketing tool. It helps you sell tickets. It makes the fan base believe beyond just a sport. They believe they're connected to these guys, and I understand that. That's called smart business. I'm all for it, but let's also take a step back and be an adult for a moment and look realistically at what you're looking at. And that's where I get to the Shane Bieber thing. Let's not be so naive on this one, and let's just see. Again, I think we'll probably find out more as time goes on, and I hope he's healthy, and I hope he's everything Shane Bieber has been in his past. But I've just got a feeling that's probably not where the situation sits right now, and there's more to the story. But I do think they have a good clubhouse, but it's not. So do a lot of other teams.
So one thing that we're agreeing on is that the Blue Jays aren't done looking for starting pitchers either in trade or on the free agent market.
Right.
They're going to need more. What would you think of them? Because we talked about the Dodgers model of getting guys that are injury prone and hoping they give you 15 regular season starts and are healthy in October. What would you think of re-signing if it was $10 to $12 million, Max Scherzer?
No, I think that's too risky. I think they've got too much risk already, in my opinion. You've got Bieber, you've got Yasevich, who you just can't assume is going to be there. You've got, speaking of clubhouse, you've got probably an issue with the Rios that nobody wants to really dig into yet. So I think you probably need more security, and I think you probably got to go get a big guy. If I'm really competing, you probably got to go out and try to sign a horse if you can, which also surprised me with the Manoah move. Why would you throw that away with knowing what this season coming into it could look like? Be the Dodgers. Have him in there. I mean, you can always move on from him in the season or in spring or whenever if it's not working out. So I just think they need a little bit more security in their rotation. I mean, sign Max if you want, but you still, that's not going to be enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the Alek Manoah move of letting him go for nothing, just at a strange time in his rehabilitation, came out of a certain front office giddiness where they were. And think about it. They thought that going up against the Yankees in the first round would create a need for an extra left hand. So they kept Justin Brule over Alek Manoah. They had a chance to clear a roster spot by letting Brule go instead of Manoah, and they wanted
Dylan Tate, or you know what I mean.
They wanted, and they're gone now. Like
Dylan
Tate for free agency, and so I think it was just giddiness. Look how smart we are. We're going to have 4 left-handers in the bullpen against the Yankees, and we're going to beat them, and we're going to show how our analytics guys are really in command of this. They might regret it next year when they're looking for that 7th or 8th starter after a couple of veteran injuries. And like you said, who knows about Yasevich in his rookie sophomore year. And who knows about Berrios? If it was an injury that kept him away, a legit injury, who knows if that'll be better? If it was a mental issue, like I'll show you guys, I won't even be there because you're treating me with disrespect, then that's a problem too. So
there's just a lot of work to be done now. Yeah. There's a lot of work.
Which brings us to a lot of work, brings us to the Bo Bichette discussion.
Oh, yes.
I asked both Mark Shapiro and Ross about, is there a plan? Is there a shoulder shrug that maybe it's better to let Bo explore free agency, find out what he's worth? Because during the season, he probably thought something beginning with a 3, like 300 million. And they know that that's not realistic. So instead of signing him early, and you and I have agreed all season that he won't be back. It's legit that he had already made up his mind. But maybe going to a World Series changes it. Maybe he'll find out, and this was the question I had, maybe he'll find out what his true market value is, and then the Jays can swoop in. He's the one who said he would play second base in the World Series, so they know he's capable of it. He did a good job at second.
Of course he is. Yeah, of course he is.
So if they give him shortstop money to play second, give him a long-term deal, and he can, whether it was bullshit or not, the dream of playing the rest of his career with Vlad will take place, will happen. His deal will probably be 8 to 10 years, not 14 like Vlad.
No, that's right.
He'll be 28 years old playing the entire 2026 season. So both Shapiro and Atkins sort of dismissed that scenario. And it didn't change my mind. I think it is a legit observation, a legit thought process that they're going to wait and see what he finds out on the market. And if he goes somewhere else, they have all sorts of versatility to fill in at second, short. Well, we know Andres Jimenez is their best shortstop, and we know how much they value run prevention. So, like, all of that being said, I hope you were able to follow my train of thought there. But it seems logical, and it's an issue that they don't want to address yet.
Well, but the point is, we're here. We're at this point. Again, I've stated this before. This is not hockey, Griff. This does not, just like Vladdy, this did not need to get to this point unless the player didn't want to sign, and he has chosen not to sign like Vladdy did. So Vladdy held them for ransom for way, 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 way more money than he was ever going to get anywhere else, and they paid it. So Bo has rejected their offers for years now. So if anybody thinks this, we're just finally getting to this point. No, this is just the deadline. This is the end of the road. So of course, I think at this point, Bo is going to go and see what he's worth. And is there a chance that this glorious run could change his mind? Perhaps. Anything's possible. It was a pretty special run. So perhaps, the good feelings might take over and you get to play with Vlad, and it's a great city, and maybe he does change his mind and become a second baseman. I don't see it. He's going to have to get shortstop money to do it, as you said. But all the big boys are in need of a guy like Bo, possibly playing short. And he couldn't be entering the market at a better time for a starting shortstop. And I'm sure he still views himself as that. He played second base because he just wanted to get on the field in the World Series. I mean, and kudos to him. But we don't get to this point without a lot of problems or issues all the way through. They could have signed him at any point in his tenure like everybody else, and they couldn't get it done. So perhaps it's possible. Perhaps things change because of this World Series run. But if you're looking at it realistically, there's a reason you're at this stage with this player, just like there was a reason you were at that stage with Vladdy. And they were able to keep Vladdy, but a substantially higher contract than they ever should have had to pay if you had, done this normally with good relationships. So here we are. So anything's possible, but I'm suspecting he's going to get a pretty big deal out there. Like, do you not think the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Braves might step in and up the ante? And in fairness to the Blue Jays, I think they might be ready to move on. I just think they might be ready to move on from the player.
Yeah, they do value run prevention so much more than any other team in baseball, and it's worked for them. And they've discovered that shortstop is immeasurably better with Andres Jimenez there. So either Bo explores the market, comes back and says, okay, I'll take your offer, and I'll play second base, or they move on. But moving on is a danger because this guy had 181 hits, finished second, tied for second in the American League, and missed the last 4 weeks.
He was going to lead the league in hits, the major leagues.
Yeah,
he was. Mm-hmm.
So I did a sort of a deep dive on griffsthepitch.com, did a column that I posted yesterday, and it had all sorts of charts and numbers and old guy stuff, and the top 12
that's right.
Total value, the top 12 total value shortstops in history. Let me read down the list and you tell me where you think Bo fits in that group. We've got Lindor. I'll just say what the top number is. Lindor, 10 years, $341 million. Then you got Corey Seager, Trey Turner, Bobby Witt Jr., Xander Bogaerts, which might have been a mistake by the Padres. Then A-Rod. So he signed one with Texas.
Not so bad.
They tore that up. And that was in 2001. Before that was a thing,
Yeah.
That was considered to be the highest that Major League Baseball would ever go in a AAV.
Yeah.
25 million. That it would never get any higher. And look at us now.
Yeah.
So after A-Rod, 6 and 7, was Carlos Correa, mistake by the Twins, Derek Jeter, Wander Franco, huge mistake, Willie Adames in San Francisco, and Dansby Swanson with the Cubs. That 12th one is 7 years, $177 million. Somewhere in there is where Bo's going to fit. I don't think he will eclipse Lindor, obviously. And I suggest, experts are saying that it'll be around 200 million total package, which would put him in the 7, 8, 9 all time. Do you think that's where he deserves to fit, or he might get more if he's being pursued by the Yankees and Dodgers?
I think he gets more. And the reason I do is because those deals date back to different eras, different times. Even Lindor with that with that much of a deal, that's still before the 700 millions and 600 millions and 500 millions got paid out, right? So I think with the amount of money that owners have been throwing around, I think Bo or any free agent is looking to push the envelope, and historically it keeps going up. I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but if you're Bo and his agent and the Blue Jays offer you $200 million, you go, I'm 40% worth what Vladdy is? 40%? That's an absurd thing. And I know, but how do you justify giving somebody $500 million and I'm trying to crack 2 and I'm a shortstop? So I'm not saying he's getting that kind of thing. I'm saying I think he gets more than 2. I think the market's getting pushed higher and higher, and I think it's shown that the money's out there. So I'm expecting over 2 for Bo. That's what I think. I could be wrong. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, I compare it to if you're in a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt, and you think you're 80% as good of them as an actor, doesn't mean you're getting 80% of their payroll. You're not getting 80% of what the star of the movie is making. And Vlad is the star of this show.
I got news for you. Bo isn't an extra, Griff. He's not an extra in the film. He's the star too. He's a star. He might be as much of a star as Vladdy by the end of it. Because how many times did we sit back and people didn't know who to pay? Do you keep Bo or Vlad? Because Vlad was going through some horseshit years too. Like I'm just saying, it's not cut and dry. This isn't Ohtani and Will Smith. It's just not the same. This is the mistakes you get into. This is, and again, I'm not saying he's getting that money. I'm just saying they're pushing the envelope. I'd push the envelope, and I expect it to be greater than 200 million. That's what I expect.
So when I asked the question about Bo to Shapiro and about letting them go through the process, and I ended it with, is there a shoulder shrug in your front office that you let this happen? He sort of got a little pissed. He goes, "There's no shoulder shrug when it comes to players like Bo. We're just starting to put together an offseason plan, and Bo negotiations will be part of an offseason plan. That's something that when Ross is ready, he will address." They've had since 2022.
Correct. What happened to those negotiations and those offers?
And Ross's response was about the question. He didn't deny the possibility of asking him or making it part of their deal to have Bo change position from shortstop to second base. His answer was, "We'll see. The great thing about our current alignment is we have flexibility beyond how it impacts Bo. We have multiple players who can play multiple positions, and that's a good starting point." And he's right about that, but he didn't deny it. So I'm saying and you say you were the first one to emphasize they could have done this 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And I think, in fairness to the Jays, I think Bo's no treat to deal with either.
Yeah.
I'm not just I don't think it's been an easy relationship over the last, since he's been up with the club. I think it's been tough, and that matters.
Maybe instead of DiCaprio and an extra, I should have gone De Niro and Pacino, like as a comparison.
Maybe. I think that's better. That's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at.
And with Vlad, what they paid and the metamorphosis of his image around North America after his October run of like posting epic numbers in his postseason run. Do you think this makes the 14-year extension, $500 million, more palatable, more worthwhile for the Blue Jays moving forward? Do you think it justifies?
Justify, I don't know, but certainly makes it more palatable. It was imperative they had to sign him, right? Where is this franchise without him? And like I said, unfortunately, they couldn't get it done at a more realistic price. But regardless, I think you're seeing an entire franchise turn. And I think Vladdy is the biggest reason for that. And I think going forward, you've got a star in place, and you've mentioned that a lot. Like, you got to have that guy in place for a lot of reasons that go beyond just the field. And it just had to be done. It just had to be done. And he had such a great run in the postseason. Nobody cares about $500 million, do they? It's kind of humorous, I think, to the fan base at this point. Hey, you performed. That's fantastic. So
yeah,
I think it's changed the direction of the franchise for sure. It costs a lot of money.
And with how much of a tool do you think the World Series run, coming within 4 inches of winning it all?
Yep.
And we talked about what a terrible play that was by IKF at third base.
We have talked about it.
Yeah.
I'd characterize it differently, but that's okay.
But would you suggest that Bo, or not Bo, that Vlad will be a major part of sort of a natural recruiting process for not just other Dominicans and players from the Caribbean, but with free agents and players who might have been skeptical about coming to Toronto. Do you think that Vlad is a huge part of that?
Yeah, I do. He's kind of gregarious. You know what I mean? He's Vladdy. He's kind of beloved. You know, with his all-star home run derbies, and now you add winning, which is the most important thing. I 100% agree with you. I think it makes them way more attractive to the Japanese market, even though they're on the East Coast. But anybody, I mean, it's a selling feature. Free agents, when you're looking at where you want to play, if you get to play with Ohtani, Judge, and now maybe Vladdy's in that conversation, right? Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of the best, selling features you have. But beyond other things, complete country to play for, which does matter. It's unique experience. And when you're winning, I think that sells. I think you overlook the fact that an American doesn't have ESPN on his television, which does matter, actually.
You know who's been water skiing behind the Vladimir Guerrero boat? Is the guy making out like a bandit is Tito LeBron, the translator. He is now a star. He's an entrepreneur in Latin, Spanish-speaking countries in the Caribbean. He is the mastermind of the home run jacket, and
really?
Every year he gets like 5 or 6 and gets them all signed. So who knows where those end up?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the guy that started out dressing in the corner of Charlie Montoyo's office at spring training, and we're going, who is that guy? Yeah. And now look at it. There's a guy who's benefited as much as anybody. I also asked Ross Atkins about the fact that there were so many eyes in the Pacific Rim, Japan, Korea, watching this World Series and watching the gushing infomercial on Rogers Center and Toronto itself and Canada, that if that would help recruiting in the Asian market, like the 3 Japanese players that are being posted, 2 hitters, one corner infielder, 1 first baseman, and a pitcher who throws 97 from the left side, whether it would help the Blue Jays image moving forward and help in recruiting. And he didn't buy into that. He said, well, we're still 6 hours farther away from their home. And it sounded to me like he thought that was a big part. I mean, he might have been fooling himself into thinking that was a big part of losing Sasaki, losing Ohtani, and losing Yamamoto. I mean, I think Dodger money had a lot more to do with that. But do you think that it can help in the Pacific Rim? Not just those 3 players I'm talking about, but the image of Canada and Toronto and Rogers Center.
Yeah, I think it can't hurt. I actually agree with Ross, though. I think that is a major factor for these guys when they're coming over. It's a big difference from the West Coast to the East Coast for a Japanese player. I think if they can somehow land one, that could change things, right? Just like the Yankees. They still managed to find their way into some big name, Hideki Matsui's of the world. That type of thing. So I think it helps build the brand there for sure. Do I think it's an overnight thing? No, but it does help build the brand, and that's what they got to do. Now they got to land a guy somehow, and then you really build a brand.
I thought for a while there that the signing of Munenori Kawasaki was going to help, but clearly it didn't.
Yeah, it worked over here for us, but maybe not so big over there. I don't think people are waking up in the middle of the night to watch Kawasaki play. So.
I am Japanese. That was his famous response.
That's right.
Rookie of the year was the first of the BBWAA announcements. That was on Monday. And there's no surprise. Nick Kurtz of the Athletics was the winner. Jacob Wilson was second, shortstop, also with the Athletics. And Roman Anthony, even though he only had 333 plate appearances for the Red Sox. That, and then Drake Baldwin, catcher for the Braves, won it in the National League. Caleb Durbin and Cade Horton, lefty for the Cubs, finished runner-up, finished on the podium. But I've always felt like the game, and that may be why the next collective bargaining agreement negotiation that could halt the game in 2027 has a lot to do with free agent. I mean, players' rosters are getting so much younger. Like, they're not taking as long to develop. They cut it down to four minor league teams for a reason. They don't want to stockpile guys. If you don't advance in the first 3 years as a pro, they're just going to set you free and you can go play in an independent league and try and reestablish yourself. But I think veteran players who thought free agency would be the bonanza of their career are finding that there's market for middle of the road free agency is not good at all. Do you think rosters are getting younger? Is Trey Savage an example of that? And do you think it'll be a big part of the negotiations in 2026, 27?
I think there's a lot of issues. I think that's a big one. Whether guys are ready or not, they're coming up to play in the major leagues because they're cheap. You know what I mean? And that's I think that's more to do with it than actually thinking they're more ready than they've ever been. They kept guys in the minors, that develop longer because before contracts got before free agency started getting younger and younger, right? You could afford to do it. Now you're forced to get these guys up as quick as you can to take advantage of their fully controllable years, so to speak. And you want to avoid paying the big dollars for perhaps guys that have had, as we know with analytics, they've done a lot of the guys that have had their best years, that their best days are behind them. Why would I want to pay? Let's talk about Bo. Let's say it's 220 when, he's slowing, and realistically, he's still 28 and he's still great, but you could go, well, he doesn't run like he used to. You know what I mean? There's a lot of factors. So they're going younger and paying guys earlier, but with what would be a reasonable $100 million contract, to sign guys. So yeah, it's skewing younger. And I think that's going to be the push for the players, is to get the free agency at a much younger age. And obviously owners want to control costs. So they're going to be pushing a salary cap. I think Armageddon's is near us.
Yeah. I've always been beating the drum, even going back to the late 90s and early zeros, about losing the best athletes, baseball losing the best athletes to basketball and football and other sports. And the reason, I thought, was because it takes 4 or 5 years to develop in the minor leagues. And an example of that is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray would be better off at quarterback. He chose to quarterback the Arizona Cardinals instead of being a first-round draft pick by the Oakland A's. Yeah. And look, it hasn't turned out great for him. And he was knowing that he could be in the NFL right away. And even at that time, it would have taken him 4 or 5 years to reach the majors. And moving up that timeline, I think, is going to help. They don't know fundamentals, but a guy like IKF, he's been around forever and he doesn't know them. So
you're never going to let this go. That's right.
No. But if you get the best athletes to choose baseball instead of football or basketball, then you're ahead of the game, because at some point, people pay to see talent. They don't pay to see fundamentals. And if you get those players, right. And with 4 minor league teams, and now with the paying of college athletes, that could become the farm system. I mean, you look, and the Giants hired the manager of the Tennessee Volunteers, straight out of college. So there's not much separating the two anymore. And I think that there will be a lot of new issues brought up in the 26, 27 negotiation, and how to adjust free agency so that it doesn't hurt. I mean, in hockey, if you're a 33-year-old free agent, you're toast, right?
Yeah.
But
but you're right though. So if we can get to that point, I mean, and frankly, baseball is a much safer, easier on the body game than football, right?
especially with the
so if you
rules,
can somehow,
no collisions, no double play takeouts. I mean, it's becoming soft.
right? Well, sure. It's less injuries for sure. Major injuries to your body, CTE, things like that. You've got to think if baseball can position itself a little better in that respect, it gives them a little advantage, and they need one because football's really kicked them in the what.
Couple more items. Yeah, a couple more items. We're talking about managers and the guy from Tennessee University. There were 8 openings, 7 have been filled, but you have some really unusual hires. Craig Stamen, who was 2 years, he just got hired by the Padres. No managerial, no dugout experience other than being a relief pitcher for a pretty decent career, not a great career, a decent career. But he was an assistant in the front office for the Padres for the last 2 years, and now he's in the dugout managing. Blake Butera, Nationals, 33 years old, like 3 years in the minor leagues, clearly an analytics guy, you would think. Walt Weiss, good. Derek Shelton, good. Craig Albornoz with the O's. I don't even know who that is.
Right.
You?
No.
Skip Schumacher.
He got praise. Where was he? Who was he? Was he in Cleveland? I think.
Yeah, probably. I think he was, yes.
Yeah.
So Skip Schumacher has experience. Kurt Suzuki, no experience. Angels. He signed a 1-year deal because the GM has a 1-year deal. Like, yeah, that makes no sense. But he's rolling the dice. Tony Vitello is the Tennessee coach, who's now the manager of the Giants. And here's a note for you. John Schneider now ranks 12th in wins among active managers out of 30 teams.
Well, there you go. I just think I get it. We've never seen managers be as inexperienced as we are these days because they're moving more to analytics, an extension of the front office, and less a mentor and a less, relationship guy, I think. And for me, criticize me if you want. I'm an old guy. I just think at the end of the day, that's such an important role for a manager. And I bet you John Schneider would agree with you, having learned the hard way, taken his lumps for a couple of years, that how you manage the personalities in the room is vitally important, just as important as making sure you're putting the optimal lineup out there and making sure nobody faces third time through the order guy. I don't know. I think we're really pushing the limits of non-experienced managers and how that impacts a clubhouse. That's just it's what I see.
That aspect of handling personalities and players, Schneider has probably advanced in that area since he took over in mid-season 22. Advanced more than in any other area of his job right now. Let's see. We got 2 more items here. One. I know you have a take on this, and it's strong, is Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz possibly getting 60 years in jail for throwing a ball in the dirt, getting $50,000 for not throwing a strike. Your Ironbacks would all be millionaires right now.
I'd be millionaires. Holy smokes.
What do you think the gambling issue can be controlled? They say they're going to take the prop bets for individual pitches. MLB is going to try and take them out of the equation.
And it sounds like the right move. Any layman would go, it's the dumb idea. Just like, I mean, no if anybody knows anything about gambling, no regulated sports book is taking any major money on these. That's one pitch props. It doesn't happen. That's going through other books. Now, again, being the cynic in me, Griff, you cannot tell me there's more to this story either. What kind of pressure was put in these guys? They're making millions of dollars. They may be dumb, but they're not that dumb. Who did they owe and why? Why were they forced to do this? You know what I mean? They weren't looking for the $5,000 for crying out loud. It's falling out of their shoes. Like, so again, they're going to try to suppress the story. These guys are done. They're in trouble and they are going to jail. It's not going to be 65 years, but it's a real unfortunate, shameful moment for the game. But as far as we're going to pretend Major League Baseball's taking action with this silly story about $200 on prop bets. You couldn't get $50 down on your local FanDuel. You couldn't even find the bet. You couldn't find the bet to make it on any reputable sports book. So, anyways.
I don't know. I think Otani's translator has far-reaching tentacles.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it's called offshore. There's no question. And the regulated sports books are why you find out about this. Let's not just act like this is something that's just come into our culture now. Gambling's been a part of forever and ever and ever and ever, except it just wasn't legalized here. So now it's all over the place. It's gross. It's in our face. I think it drives us all crazy. So I don't have any sympathy for a sports book. I can tell you that. But you got to look deeper into these things. You just do. Now these, like I said, shame on these guys. They're toast. Clase was is maybe the best closer in baseball. There's definitely more to this story, and I hope somehow this comes out, because there's no way these guys do this for chump change. It just doesn't happen, Griff.
So one more item here before we close, and I'll just say that we're going to pick up our NFL predictions next week.
All right.
Closer to midweek, so we'll have better view of the lines and the injuries and that sort of stuff.
Because that's what we need.
Yeah, that's what we do. But I just want to ask you about your Buffalo Bills. They don't seem to be
Lord, mercy.
They don't seem to be in high gear right now.
No, they don't. What a putrid performance that was the other day. I mean, there's one thing to lose a game. It can happen any week, but they look like they didn't get off the bus. I mean, it's the problems that everybody's been screaming about finally came to the surface, right? I mean, they have no wide receivers. They're not getting open. And then they lose Kincaid, and the defense is what it is. I mean, it's average at best at times. So if it's Josh with the cape, or they're in trouble, I think. But
yeah,
who knows? Week to week in this league, you go back a week and they beat the Chiefs, right? So everybody was loving them. So even
at 16-0 at halftime against Miami, you felt like they were going to come back and score like 30 in the second half.
Right.
But that didn't happen. He threw an interception from the 5-yard line after scrambling his way down the field.
Oh, yeah. That was an impressive drive too. And then whoops.
Anyway, that wraps up this edition of Exit Philosophy, and we are going to be at you in the middle of next week with another episode. But by then, there'll be all sorts of news on everything that we talked about today. So we'll have updates, and I'm sure there'll be breaking news that we will have to discuss. But thank you all for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Don't forget to tell your friends about Exit Philosophy on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back at you next week. Thanks, Mal.
Thank you.